Hello everybody, how are you doing? I hope that life's treating you well and that your studies are going smoothly. Welcome back to some more revision with Galbraith Does Psych. Today we're going to continue with social influence and we're going to look at explanations for obedience. We're going to focus today on agentic state and legitimacy of authority, and I'm going to show you some exam style questions, and you can in a minute pause the video, have a go, come back and I'll talk through them. If you're not quite at the practice phase of your revision and you need to kind of do a bit more of the kind of rehearsal, a bit more kind of listening to someone talking through it, that's fine. Do what you want with it, and I hope that you can make it useful for you. Right, so let's crack on. Okay, so here's your chance to pause. And we're off again. Okay, 2 marks, knowledge of agentic shift. Maybe something along the lines of, agentic shift is the process by which a person moves from being autonomous and freely making their own decisions to a state where people are just agents of authority and have passed off responsibility. There you go. Okay, so the state itself now, subtly different this question. Look, the first one's about the shift, this one is about the state itself. So we need a bit more knowledge for that second mark here. So the agentic state is where a person has shifted responsibility onto an authority figure, making them obedient. Perhaps the second mark could come from something like this prevents them from feeling guilty about their actions, or it stops them questioning the authority figure. Okay? 2 marks for legitimate authority. So this is basically where we become aware of the social hierarchy and we recognize somebody as holding a valid or credible position of authority above us in the hierarchy. It's often signaled by them wearing uniform. That'll do for 2 marks. This time we've got agentic state for 4 marks. So what I would add on here is maybe some information about binding factors. So once we are in an agentic state, binding factors keep us there. This might include contractual obligations. For example, if you're doing a job for somebody, you've agreed to do it, you're receiving payment, you're more likely to stay in that state and not question the authority figure. Etiquette is another binding factor as well. So again, once we've kind of agreed or we've said we're going to help someone out, it can be quite difficult to kind of go back on that. Yeah. So binding factors keep us in the agentic state, such as etiquette and contractual obligations. Okay. Legitimate authority for 4 marks. So again, I would say what I said earlier for 2 marks. What you could add here is a couple of ideas. So maybe a legitimate authority tends to be backed by an institution, such as a police officer is backed by the police service and the justice system. A teacher is backed by the school and the head teacher. And the point being here that there's a system of consequences behind the authority figure for if you disobey. Something else you can add is that we tend to accept definitions of situations provided by legitimate authority figures. So that's, for example, where we, think about the Milgram study, for example. Let's use that, and we'll kind of answer the next one then. Yeah. So in the Milgram study, if you watch the video, some of the participants started to question the authority figure, the experimenter. They were saying things like, what's going to happen to that man? Can you go and check on him? Is he all right? And the experimenter would kind of just remain cool and distant and say things like, the shocks may be painful, but they're not dangerous. There's no lasting harm. He's fine. Let's get on with it, basically. And the participants tended to then carry on. Yeah, not all of them, but they tended to carry on. And what they were doing, perhaps, is accepting the experimenter or the authority figure's definition of that situation. The authority figure was saying, it's okay. It's a safe situation. Might be painful, but it's not dangerous. So we're going to carry on. Yep, so for the knowledge of that 4 marker, we've got the backed by an institution idea, we've got the situational definitions idea, and then we've kind of answered the next one as well in terms of using Milgram's research. Okay, bottom row, we've got a bit of application here. We've got 4 marks. We've got Ted, and he has come across someone who's been injured. There's an ambulance. Paramedic tells him, it's fine, crack on with your day. Okay, so I think I would use a couple of things that we've already mentioned here. So it seems to me that Ted is accepting the definition of the situation provided by the paramedic. A bit like what I was just talking about with Milgram. The paramedic has told Ted it's okay. The person's going to be all right, carry on with your day. So Ted doesn't question that. Ted accepts that as a safe situation, as it were. So Ted accepts that the person is going to be okay, there's nothing he can do to help, and he carries on with his day, he obeys. The other point to make is probably just to explain that the paramedic is a legitimate authority figure. So in that situation, Ted recognises that he doesn't have any authority or medical expertise in that situation, and the paramedic is above him in the hierarchy. That is probably signalled by the fact that the paramedic is likely to be wearing a uniform that says paramedic or medic or something on it. Possibly, it says an ambulance as well. So that whole thing there is going to signal authority and expertise to Ted. Okay. So a couple of more extended response ones. An 8 marker on agentic state. I'm not going to go over all of the knowledge again because we've already talked through that. But for an 8 marker, we're looking either at a 3 knowledge mark plus 5 evaluation mark, or it'll be a 4 plus 4. You won't know on the day, so hedge your bets. For an 8 marker, I'd be looking for 2 evaluation paragraphs, and that might be Peel style, however you normally write it. But we're looking probably for 2 points here. So research support would be one idea. So you could say one strength of the agentic state explanation is research support, and you could use Milgram study, for example, to support that. We've already been over that. And the fact that there's research support means that the agentic state is a credible explanation for obedience. My second point might be that despite this research support, it is not the full picture. We know, for example, there are alternative explanations focused on disposition, for example, like the authoritarian personality. Agentic state doesn't account for personality, and therefore it is only a partial explanation for obedience. Okay, that's it. We then have a 16 marker on agentic state and or legitimate authority. So I would probably take the option to do both here. I'm not sure I'd really want to do a 16 marker just on agentic state or just on legitimate authority. So take what I've said just now for the 8 marker, and we need to now flex it up to be 16. So you're going to add on another maybe 3 marks of knowledge for legitimate authority. Again, I've been through all that. I'm not going to rehash it all now. And then we need another 1 or 2 evaluation paragraphs. So I'd stick with what I've said for the 8 markers. So that was the research support from Milgram for the agentic state. That was the partial explanation because it doesn't include personality. So what else can we use? Well, you might be aware of the study, I know it's in some of the books, by Tarnow, who looked at plane crashes, looked at the black box recordings from those aircraft, and found that people did not question the captain, even though the situation seemed pretty bad. Well, that suggests that in real life, people do obey legitimate authority, or certainly that they don't question legitimate authority figures. Presumably, in those tragic incidents, the rest of the staff assumed the captain knew what they were doing and just passed off the responsibility. Yeah, so you could use that either way, but I think it tends to be presented as support for legitimate authority, okay? And that would suggest that the theory has credibility because there's research support. You could argue, because it's a real-life study, that it also gives the theory maybe some external validity as well. Okay, another point, possibly you could use the My Lai massacre and talk about Lieutenant William Calley, who I'm sure you would have read about in the books. You can watch entire videos on the My Lai massacre, so I'm not going to go through that now. But that would be a real-life example of agentic state or legitimate authority, depending on how you presented it, which again would give it maybe some real-world application or some external validity, possibly to move that up to be a bit more discussion. You could counter-argue that with the fact that it's hard to measure. Both of these are hard to measure, hard to test, hard to prove. You could talk about how maybe they become an excuse for, in terms of the legal system. How do you actually hold people to account if they can just kind of pass the buck, as it were? And that might be an ethical or kind of a sensitive issue in society. Okay, let's double check the question there. It says refer to evidence. I think we've done that. Okay, that's it then. All right, so we've been through legitimate authority and agentic state. Have a quick reflect on how that went. So which questions were fine? If you did it fully and you've got a bit more time and you've kind of marked it, as it were, where are you losing marks? Reflection, okay, I got these marks, I didn't get this, but how easy was it? What did I have to look up anything? Did I mix up any terms? How long did it take me? Am I doing it in the right amount of time? All of that sort of thing. And then what are you going to do about it? And this can then feed back and become part of your audit for your next session of revision. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I hope that was useful. Please do let me know how you're doing in the comments. Suggest some content. Ask me a question. All the best. See you soon. Bish bash bosh.